Consistency to me is like not necessarily in the result. It's more of like in the approach. So many people think months need to go by before you make changes. What I've learned over these last 3 months is
it normal for you to not place trades?
profits is the last thing I'm thinking about. It's the approach. I don't want to be a trader whose biggest losses and biggest wins are right around the same number.
Now new traders are gonna be able to watch this and be able to know like, okay, I'm not gonna make money right away, even if I'm fixing things. It takes time.
Stop caring what other people think, what other people's journey looks like, what trajectory they're on. Be you.
What do you mean by I haven't been consistent enough?
If you're always one trade away from disaster, you're not going to have longevity in this game.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today's gonna be a great day because we're here with Dom Master Mateo to dive into what he is really well known for, and that's having patience and waiting for the best plays. So welcome back to the show, my man.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely, man. So how are you able to really sit back and wait? And do you ever struggle with that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm a human being. I think that's what makes trading so hard is that your kind of goal is to be perfect and to be this robot. You know, so many people are pushing towards trying to be a systematic trader or someone who has algorithms that take the human emotion out of it. But it's kind of what makes it fun, but it's what definitely makes it challenging. And when you go through stretches where maybe the market's not perfect for you or those great opportunities aren't there, it gets really difficult to not push buttons, especially when you have the time to do it. If you're a full-time trader and you're supposed to sit there every single day and the plays aren't there and they're not on your watch list and you're not prepared to trade anything, the smartest move is always just not to do anything because, you know, in the wrong circumstances, the market is very much like the casino. And at any moment, you know, there's nothing stopping you from clicking buttons and going and trading any setup that you want. And so many people, I feel like the second they get bored or the second they get a little tilted, it's just, that's how they treat it. And they just continue to push buttons. And it just kind of it adds so many more layers of variance to their numbers, to their stats. And it makes it increasingly difficult to kind of get yourself out of sticky situations because you're constantly dealing with a bunch of things that aren't, accurate, but it's also not, consistent. You're doing so many different things that how do you really pinpoint where the mistakes are and where you succeed? So it's definitely difficult, especially when you start to look at 3 months, 6 months, 12 months of trying to be as consistent as you possibly can be. You know, that's my biggest goal for this year and something I've been working with Jack Kellogg over the last 3 months because I had gotten lazy for a while. You know, 2023 was a rough year for me, my first red year in my entire career. And so coming off the back of that, I really want to just be a consistent trader again and someone who I can actually trust myself to be green every single month for an entire year. Because I do believe, you know, the market's constantly changing. We go through cycles. It's not always hot. It's not always freezing cold. But there's enough opportunity every month for, like you said, to sit back and wait for your setups to be green. It might not be as much as you want or like breaking records for yourself, but there is enough opportunity if I can control and be disciplined and control what I do on a day-to-day basis, like showing up every day with the same mindset for a whole year. And that's what I'm really trying to work towards because I do look at myself as like one of the more inconsistent traders. I'm very hot and cold where if the market isn't great for me and my setups aren't there on a day-to-day basis, that's when I struggle. That's when those human elements come out and I start to overtrade a little bit. I start to maybe trade a setup 2 or 3 times instead of giving it the one loss and moving on, or trading stuff outside of my niche or trading outside of my setups. And then when things are good and there is a 2 or 3 week stretch, that's when I make the bulk of my money. And I'm good enough at risk management where I don't give it back in those stretches, but I am still making those mistakes. So for me, the biggest goal for me this year is just like prove to myself that I can be consistent again. Like show up every day, put the work in, study at night, go through my stats, make my watch list, prepare for the day. And like, what does that look like over 12 months? Because I've never really been consistent for a long enough period of time to like really prove to myself that I can do it.
What do you mean by that? Like, because people are going to hear that and they know that this is your first red year was 2023. So what do you mean by I haven't been consistent enough?
It pretty much, consistency to me is like not necessarily in the result. It's more of like in the approach, like how you approach the market and how you think about it in your mindset on a day-to-day basis. Because I think that's truly the root of almost everyone's problems when it comes to being unprofitable or going through drawdowns or having big losses. It usually starts in the way you approach the market in terms of what do you do on a nightly basis? How do you prepare for the market? Are you only trading stuff that you are actually prepared for and have planned to trade? What are your rules say about over trading or oversizing or how many attempts you're allowed to trade something? What patterns are you allowed to trade? Like every single part of your game needs to be consistent. And if it's not, one problem begets another problem, and all of a sudden you're off the rails and we're 3 months down the line and you don't know where the root cause is. And so it's all these little things. So my goal this year is like consistency and approach. Every single thing I have mapped down on a piece of paper, like my blueprint. What is my responsibility every single day, Monday through Friday? What is my responsibility on Sundays? And what does that look like for me in terms of like, if I do all of that right, if I stick to my patterns, if I'm tracking every trade, if I'm going through with Jack on Sundays and writing up a whole report on what I did wrong that week and immediately fixing it for Monday, then what does that look like after 12 months? And what does that correlate to, profit-wise? Like the profits is the last thing I'm thinking about. It's the approach. It's how I come into the market and how much effort I'm actually putting into to improving my craft. And by doing that and focusing on the process, focusing on the trade plan, focusing on the way that, I'm preparing to trade versus focusing on how much money I want to make early, which is what I feel like started to happen in 2023 for me, which is I was focusing on making a new biggest trade, breaking records. And my focus was in the wrong place. And eventually all those little things start to crack, right? I stopped making the watch list every single night. I stopped studying DVDs and guides. I stopped getting better. I stopped tracking my trade for a month here or a month there. And all of a sudden the little things start to balloon, and it's hard to keep them all together. And it's like a bunch of balloons go off and all of a sudden they're all gone because you can't hold all of them at once. And that's kind of how I felt. So it's consistency and approach. And if I do that right, because those are the things I can control. In the market, I think beginners struggle with this too, is like, you kind of feel like you're just at whim of the market, right? Of like where the overall market's at, how are the big caps doing? How many gappers do we have? And I kind of try to forget about all that stuff because I don't control any of that. I don't control what tomorrow brings in terms of how many opportunities they're going to be, but I control what I trade and if I'm prepared to trade it or not. And so if everything that I do is, batted down and properly set up, then the results will be what they are, right? The stats will be what they are. I'm going to win a certain amount of percentage of the time, but improving everything else is what my focus is on this year, because that consistency will lead to consistent results.
I'm very curious, like, what are you putting in place? And you mentioned a couple of things, like you'll meet with Jack maybe on Sundays. Do you have anything in place to like for forgiveness or leeway or anything? Because like you can't be perfect, right? Or unless you're like,
you're never going to be perfect. But I'm not giving myself leeway right now. I've been calling it going back to preschool. Like I don't have any of the privileges I had in 2020, 21, 22, when I was really continuing to make new highs on my P&L chart. Bigger gains, which eventually led to a lot of mistakes. I've started over mentally, like from the ground zero. Obviously, I have a lot of experience that I can play off of. I know the patterns that work for me. I know what I probably need to cut out. But for me, it was sizing down. It was restarting from the base, getting a trading accountability buddy, and doing everything the right way. Because I truly felt my foundation was broke, and eventually it was going to start to crumble. Like I could already see little like cracks in the walls of like, oh, 50K loss here, 60K loss there. Oh, I took 200 executions on this day. And I'm the type of guy who's buying once, selling once. Like I'm not the guy who has a million triangles on his chart at the end of the day. There are traders who do that and do well at that. That's not me. So if you see a chart like that for me, that's a big red flag. And so what was the question?
You know, right. Like you're not giving yourself any leeway.
Wiggle room. No, and for me, it's like, I don't deserve the wiggle room. And so many beginners, I feel like, give themselves wiggle room. Like they see Kyle trading SMCI the other day, and it's outside the niche, right? It's a big cap stock, trading off NVIDIA. A lot of people know about it. Like it's not a small cap pattern, right? But it shows up, and there is an edge there when trading it if you have the experience, if you have, the account, if you have the skill set. But if you don't, you're opening up the door for bigger losses, for bigger disaster. That stock's moving 100 points a day. Like that's not what you're normally seeing with small caps. And too many beginners let themselves go. They give themselves too long of a leash. And all of a sudden, like we keep talking about, those little things that you do, allowing yourself to do that once, whether it works or not on the trade, is going to affect how disciplined you. It's like if you're on a diet and you have one cheat day after 2 weeks of being really good, it's going to be really hard in the next 5 days not to give yourself another one and have a little one here. And eventually it's going to turn into a habit. And that's what we're trying to stop doing. I want my habits back, the good risk management habits that I had, that I built my career on. And so I don't give myself any wiggle room right now. If I make a mistake over the week, like what Jack does with me, it's like there's punishments. I got to run miles. I got to be in the cold plunge a certain amount of time. And it's not like fear of having to do those things. It's more of like, we all should want the best for ourselves. Like if we're treating this like a profession, we want to do this a long time. And if we know through you telling me while looking at my numbers, or me looking at my numbers, or feeling like I'm making a mistake, like there has to be at some point where you just say, no, I'm done making this mistake. If I say I'm not going to trade parabolic shorts, and one comes around, I need to get to the point where I'm not tempted anymore. And that takes time to do it. Like I've been doing this for 3 months now, and I'm still making mistakes that I was making in 2022 and 2023, but it's getting less and less. And you have to continue to move forward. So it's not like I beat myself up.
Yeah.
It's not wiggle room like, I sit on Saturday nights and just sit in a quiet room and just cry or something.
Yeah.
But it's accepting that I'm going to make those mistakes, but what are the rules I can put in place to just eliminate them so that it becomes a habit of not doing those things. And so that way, when I start to size up again and get back to where I want to be, those temptations don't come back. And I don't allow myself to go down that road again.
Hey, we wouldn't be able to do these face-to-face interviews if it wasn't for our sponsor, Cobra Trading. So if you can just give them a few seconds of your time, we'd really appreciate it. Cobra Trading is the go-to broker for day traders and short sellers. And I'm not the only one saying this. In fact, Benzinga awarded Cobra Trading as the go-to broker for short selling. They have a heavy focus on direct market access order routing, so you have the fastest execution. They have some of the best locate prices and availability. They also have amazing customer service. I've experienced many different brokers, and it's why I use them every single day and why I'm proud to have them as our sponsor. Sign up now by clicking the Be the Trader referral link below and earn 1 free month of software with Cobra and 25% off all commissions. Now let's get back to the show. So I'm curious on the idea of, are you now being so disciplined? Like, is it normal for you to not place trades? Like, is that part of like a normal week for you? So
Lately, I've been placing trades most days, but the amount of trades per day is definitely lower, and the amount per week is a lot lower than it has been. But it's also going to vary based off of how many opportunities. Like if there's crazy amount of runners, I'm going to take more trades. And you generally have that sense on a week-to-week basis of what the week's opportunities look like, unless you get a random holo that runs from $2 to $50 and sets everything on fire. If you don't have that throughout the week, you kind of know the tickers. Like right now we're watching the AI stocks pretty much, right? And so you kind of gauge how many trades you should be taking if you're sticking to your patterns. Because for me, I'm big picture daily chart setups, so they're not around every day. Like waiting for stocks to come into my wheelhouse, right? SOUN might be trading for 7 days where it's volatile and it has a lot of range and people are watching, but there might only be 1 day where it comes into my wheelhouse. So it is, there's been multiple days over the last month where I just don't trade. I have a rule for myself right now where if it's not on my watch list, I'm not allowed to trade it, which incentivizes me that I'm not allowed to trade if I don't make a watch list then, because if I don't make a watch list, it's just something's not on the watch list. And then it allows me this sense of ease too, where I feel like a lot of people, and this is how I felt in 2023, it's like I started to lose control over my P&L of like, any day could go off the rails. And that was a really uncomfortable feeling, that to like trust yourself so little that you couldn't stop yourself from ballooning a 5K loss into a 30K loss, which is, I think, a lot of people's problem, is like they can trade really consistent for a while and then just boom, one day it's gone. But for me, it gives me a sense of relief when I go to bed at night, knowing that I've tracked my stats, knowing that I've made my watch list, knowing that if there's 3 stocks on my watch list and I'm risking $300 per trade, the worst case scenario is based off my rules that I lose $900 tomorrow. That's a really good feeling to know that I am in control. If it's a good day, I have 3 good opportunities I might trade. Maybe I only trade 2 of them or 1 of them, but it should be no worse than a $900 day. And going into the day with that mindset versus going like a lot of people do, unprepared of what are the gappers, what's Kyle talking about, what's on Twitter. I mean, we've all been there where it's like 10:30 in the morning Eastern, and you're like, how have I traded 6 stocks? I didn't think I was going to do anything today. How am I red $2,000? And it really does happen like that.
It does.
And so for me, it puts me at ease and know that I've done everything I can do. I followed all my rules. I've made the watch list. I have the plans. And if none of those plans come to fruition, I don't trade. And if I lose on all of them, this is the worst case scenario. And knowing worst case scenario in a number, I think calms people down a lot more than just kind of the unknown, which is what I think most people trade with every day is unknown. And it really can be boiled down to a lot more of a science than that.
Is there anything that maybe I haven't asked you in regards to the steps you're taking to make sure that you get back on track and be consistent with your process that you haven't mentioned? I know you mentioned Jack, and Jack's part of that to help you review on Sundays, to hold you accountable, a trading accountability buddy, if you will. And you have like penalties, like fun little penalties. They're not fun, but like, whether it's run or ice bath, which is not fun. But at the end of the day, is there other steps you're doing just to like account yourself or things maybe I haven't asked?
Yes. So the process really is all of those things. Like I said, I have responsibilities that I have to do on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis. So to me, it was like I sat down in December and was just like, I stopped caring about what 2023 is going to look like. You have this hope towards the middle to end of the year, like I'm going to save it. I'm going to get back on track. And it just doesn't work if you don't actually commit to changing. And I just sat down and wrote down what are all of the habits that we're broken in, right?
Yep.
We're risk management's horrible. We're fighting stocks. We're losing way more than we ever lost. Our drawdowns are huge. Like we shouldn't be spending 2 months to get out of one trade loss. We're breaking rules. Like I said, we don't trust ourselves to follow plans. We're trading too many setups. I wrote down everything I could think of that was wrong with my trading. And then I made a list of all the habits I wanted. Like I keep saying consistency, right? That's what I really want. I want this. I kind of realized if I want to do this for a long time, like I've been doing this for 8 years now, like I cannot do it that way. Like where the P&L swings are all over the place, where I'm constantly stressed, where I'm either things are going great or I'm in a massive drawdown. I just want like nice, slow and steady profit. Like the way it was in the beginning before things got more stressful and I started to push more size. Like there is, whether you believe it or not, like as the money becomes bigger, the decisions get harder, even if they are just the same trade, because it's just, we're humans.
Yep.
And so I made that list and then I said, what do I want to be? And then I said, how do I take this how do I put this in control? How do I become this trader without having to like force myself to do it? Like in terms of like how do I just become this person?
Yeah.
Right. And it's just through all these things. It was every single week, every single day, I have to track all my trades. And Kyle's spreadsheet, that's on clovertrading.io,
Yep.
which is manual, like manually putting in a bunch of information every day. I didn't realize that I'd gotten so far away from that. That was another habit that was broken. Months and months went by in 2023 where I didn't know my P&L. I didn't know what rules I was breaking. And I said, no more with that. We're going to fix that. So I have to track my trades every single day. There's multiple areas that I have to put information. I have to write a little detailed journal of what I did that day, why I did it. This is important information, I think, for beginners, because by Sunday, it's really easy to forget how you felt on Tuesday and why you bought where you did, why you risked where you did, why did you move your risk, why didn't you stick to your profit target, what was my profit target? Those are questions that get unanswered on a day-to-day basis for traders, and that's valuable information that you can use to improve within days. So many people think months need to go by before you make changes or you can actually change. What I've learned over these last 3 months is I can change by next Monday. And I view it as kind of like Monday through Friday is the time to go out on the field and play. Do everything that we've talked about, follow the rules, trade the set. I don't want to think about all this other stuff that we're talking about now, all the habits and stuff. I want to just be in the game. And then over the weekend, it's how did we do? It's watching the film, right? And so after I've tracked my trades, I make my watch list. I stick to the rules that we have that week. You know, on the weekend, it's go through all that. Read every write-up of why I took every trade. Are there any trends? Is there any rule that I'm breaking that I don't really even know I'm breaking, but I can see in the numbers? Oh, it looks like we keep taking half-size losses randomly, and then the trade continues to work for us. Okay, we need to implement some new rule now that allows us to be in winning trades. So what do we do? We're cutting before a loss. Are we emotional? Are we tilted from a previous trade? Why are we not sticking to our risk level? Because that seems to be costing us money to the upside. And what the beginners don't see when they're not tracking their trades and being transparent and honest with themselves on the mistakes they're making is you can't fix those mistakes if you're not aware of them. And so if you are honest with yourself, because I think so many people try to make their numbers look good. It's like golfers with handicaps.
Yeah.
It's like it only hurts you when we actually play a game and use the handicaps. And if you can't get better, if you're not honest with yourself on what mistakes you made, because those mistakes can be fixed by Monday. And so if that's a situation I'm having where I am consistently getting a little too emotional, maybe I'm afraid to take the full size loss, like something's going on that day, maybe I'm just I don't have it, and I'm being too much of a human, right? If I have a risk level set and I cut 10 cents before to lose 200 instead of 300, what am I really doing there? I'm not sticking to my plan. So that's a mistake I'm making. So a very easy fix is, okay, the second you buy a stock, a stop loss has to immediately put in. And I'm not allowed to touch that stop unless I can actually say that I'm moving my risk level. Then I have to move my stop to that area. And so I take it out of my hands. I say, because now to break that rule and to cut early and to go against my plan, I have to go through another measure. I have to change the stop loss to a market order or a limit order and actually go in and manually break my rules.
Yep.
And so right there, a mistake that was trending throughout Monday through Friday last week should now be at least fixed or focused on going into next week. And now all of a sudden, it's not a month before I figure out that that's something hurting my trading. I figured it out by Monday.
Yep.
And so it's just like the process we keep talking about. It's just like doing the little things right.
Yeah.
And if they always say the devil's in the detail. If I do every little thing right and I don't care about the P&L, I'm not focused on the money, I'm just focused on trading well. Like by following all my rules and actually focusing on the patterns, becoming a master at those 1 or 2 or 3 patterns that I'm trading at the time, like the results, like let the chips fall where they may, because I'm doing everything I possibly can right. And what I found is the P&L is not what I want over the last 3 months, but it's 3 green months, it's 3 massive, I'm not risking a lot right now. I'm risking like 300 per trade, but it's like 30,000 in 3 months, which is whatever, 300 to 1R. I don't know math right now. But a lot of beginners would be very happy to risk $300 to make 30,000 in 3 months. And I know that I'm still a little broken, right? I'm still a little fearful of trades. Like what you talked about, being that type of trader who sits back, waits, and attacks. That's not me right now, but that's okay, because in this process of doing every little thing right, I minimize any potential for disaster. The door is always closed on disaster. I'm not going to fight stocks. I'm not going to take a big loss. My worst week happened last week. I think was a negative $1,800 week. In the last 3 months, the worst loss week we had was like $200, right? So red weeks are small. Red days, I don't have a red day over $1,000 this entire 3 months. So the little things start to show themselves, and you start to build some confidence off that. I know I'm just a month, or some month coming up is going to be a breakthrough month for me, where everything does go right. Like you said, we're not going to be perfect. We're all chasing perfection, because there is a right way to trade, right? To follow the plan, to stick to the setup. You ask yourself in the moment, would a robot cut this here? Would a robot sell into the strength because he wants the profits? He's thinking about the P&L, not the trade. We can chase that, and we continue to move forward. Move towards that. But in my mind, if I have everything taken care of on the back end, all the little things, and I feel good about it because I know that I'm doing everything I can, I'm just one good market, one good week, 5 trade stretch in a row for everything to change. I don't think beginners have that in mind, of the patience where it will happen when it happens. Stop trying to focus on making next. I feel ready, so I'm going to force it on the market, even though it could be the slowest month of the year. Like, just approach. Everyone's always asking, what do you think with the election? What do you think with Bitcoin news? What do you think? Why do I care? I don't control any of that. The only control I have is the buttons I click on a day-to-day basis, and if I have a plan to trade a stock. And if I do, I'm going to go with the same mindset, and if I don't, I'm not going to trade. And trading can be that simple. You hear people talk about, it's simple, but it's not easier. It's easier said than done as well, but like, you should be at least chasing that. And I think so many people just let themselves get away with so much. And I know I was in 2023, and it doesn't end well. Like, if you're always one trade away from disaster, or 1 week away, or 1 month away, like, you're not going to have longevity in this game. And that's what I realized over the last years, that's what I really want. Like, I haven't lost the passion, but I was getting tired, and I was getting sick of going down the direction that I was, and I had to make drastic changes. And by doing this, I think I'm building the good foundation I stopped caring about, what's my P&L going to look like? What are people going to think? And I started thinking, what do I want my life to look like in 10 years, 20 years? Do I still want to be playing this game? And if I do, then what is taking 1 year off to get my habits back in order, build the foundation right, and within a year, maybe I'm back to trading 3 to 5K risk, and I feel good, and I actually can maybe double my whole P&L in a year, because now I'm ready for it. Whereas before, maybe I could make a 100K trade, but I was also just as capable of losing 100K. And that's not the trader I want to be. I don't want to be a trader whose biggest losses and biggest wins are right around the same number. I want to be the guy that a horrible loss is, I'm risking $3,000 and it gapped down an extra 30 cents a share and I lost 6K instead of 3K. And so for me, it's just focusing on the little things. And if I do all the little things right that I control, I know that, that's what I'm saying. I've traded so poorly this last 3 months, but I'm making money because all the little stuff's taken care of.
So I love it. Right before we close this up, you mentioned something there, 2 things, but one thing that really stood out to me is like, the word that comes out is like a lagger. Like everything you're doing, you're not really worried about if you're making money right away. And it's okay if you have a red week or a red month, because you're getting better and better, and it's a lagging indicator, right? Like it's a lagging, then the profits come later. Whereas a lot of new traders, your experience, I'm so happy you're so vulnerable and happy to share what you're going through right now, because there's so many traders. If you don't know Dom, he's been very successful over the years and been very consistent. But the fact that you can also go through rocky moments, you're sharing that, and also people don't know that it's a lagging indicator, but you know, because you've been through it. So you can see it differently. And so now new traders are gonna be able to watch this and be able to know, like, okay, like, I'm not gonna make money right away, even if I'm fixing things. It takes time.
It never happens when you want it to happen. No trader that's been profitable, for me, it was 10 months. I think Kyle was more than a year. Huddy was more than a year. It never, like, people always ask, what's your aha moment? What was the light bulb moment? And there was never one for most people, because it happened when it was supposed to happen. If you are prepared for the moment and you were doing all the little things right, like what I'm saying is, like, you have so much control over your trading that you don't think you do by doing all these little things correct. And eventually it will work. And then that will spark you, because momentum's a real thing. You can't force the momentum though. I can't go into this next week and say, this is the week I'm going to put it all together. I'm going to make a lot of money. That's the wrong mindset. The mindset should be, I'm going to go into this week with the perfect mindset. I'm going to do everything the best of my ability. I'm going to trade every trade exactly the way I planned for it. And whatever happens, happens. Because you can trade the best of your ability and lose money.
Yep.
The market's not always there to make you make. I mean, there are weeks where the best case scenario is that you break even, right? Because the market was against you that week. Your setup wasn't there. I mean, most of our stats are based off of months and months, if not years. So what does 1 week or 1 day really mean?
Right.
And all these people, they just want it so bad, but they can't just understand that, like, but like you said, like putting it off, like it is a lagging indicator, because I know that I'm on sometime in the future, it's all going to work out a lot better than it is right now. And I'm going to get that spark, and that momentum's going to be real, and I'm going to start to accelerate. If you look at most people's P&L curves, it's usually down a little bit for the first months or year that they trade. They kind of get back towards break even. Then some random moment just goes up really fast. And it's not because Bitcoin was hot or marijuana was hot. It's because everything came together when it was supposed to. The market agreed. You were prepared for it. You were consistent. You were in the right mindset. You were balanced, and you were open and ready to receive it. Most people aren't ready to receive it because they break so many rules and they're not on the right track. And so mostly that looks like this. You're just kind of out in the waves, and you have to get to the point where you're open and ready to receive it in all markets. And yeah, it's kind of funny you say it's a lagging indicator in that way. Like if you do all the right stuff, it will eventually pay off. And eventually, because trading is very front loaded, where you put in all this work, you learn a lot of effort, and you put a lot of effort in, you're studying every night, maybe you're putting in 15 hours a day, but you lose. And eventually it catches back up. I think the lagging indicator for me too was like when I stopped doing all those things in 2022, I was still making money and the P&L curve was still going up, but on my level of effort and discipline and risk management was going down. And it was no kid, eventually the P&L was going to follow it. And that was a lagging indicator in that way. But that's, a metaphor for life. It's just, you can't force it in this game. Like it's going to work when it works. No one's perfect market is your perfect market. Stop caring what other people think, what other people's journey looks like, and what trajectory they're on. Stop caring about what anyone else is doing on it. Like learn from people and their mistakes, learn from me and my vulnerability, learn from my profits, my big losses, learn from what Kyle's doing, but be you. Like you have to find where you belong in the market, because I've taught many people how to trade. A lot of people in my personal life, almost no one does it the way I do it, right? But if you do I can teach you all these little things that if you do right, that you control really well, you will be set up for success, whatever pattern you trade. Yep. Because it's not about the pattern. It's about everything else.
Yep. Well, look, we're going to wrap up with that. If people are going to have tons of questions, I already know. They're going to be like, how do I reach out to Dom? Could you let them know real quick how they can reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm not too active on social medias. I think I'm Dom_Mastro10 on Twitter. I don't check it all that often. Best place would be in Clover, and we have a free room in there that in Discord that you can check out. At me, I'm DOM Dom. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. We're live every morning on YouTube. Good Morning NASDAQ, 8:45 a.m. on YouTube. And we have Clover Trading with me, Mike Hudson, and Kyle Williams, which doing a lot of this stuff, just trying to educate, mentor people to be the best trader they possibly can be.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, my man. And I'll see you again.
Thanks for having me.
All right.